Hi everybody, welcome once again back to the channel. We are once again in the car, which means we have actually seen a new film. The new film that we saw this weekend was none other than Dune Part 2, starring none other than Timothée Chalamet and a whole bunch of really high-end actors and actresses, including Zendaya, Josh Brolin, and a whole bunch of other people. Florence Pugh.
Everybody's in this movie.
Everybody's in this film. In fact, they created the characters just to get more people into it.
There's so many people in this film.
So many. Anyway, let's move along because it is a super long movie, and you guys don't need a super long review, I don't think, of a super long movie. DJ, score of 1 to 10, what would you give Dune Part 2?
I'm going to give it an 8.
An 8. I agree with the 8 for the most part. I want to bump it down to a 7, though, just because it drags.
I almost did, but I'll give a little bit more reasoning to it. But
right.
that's why. Okay, it's fairly faithful to the source material, which is, I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing. I am not a Dune super fan. I've read almost the entire book series that was written, and so I know the history of the thing. I know a lot about it. It's not my favorite sci-fi book. It's really cerebral. The movie does a really good job of capturing the essence of the story in a very, I would say this, an epic way. Other tellings of Dune have focused really hard on moving the story along. This is a spectacle.
Yep.
This film is a spectacle. It is beautiful to look at. The shots, the scenes that they set, the kind of the staging. It's almost like a play in stages. Like they have these stages throughout the film, and it just does a really good job of showing you what's happening and making it look beautiful. But it does drag. It hits these moments where it bursts forward like it's going to go somewhere, and then it pulls back, and then it bursts forward, and then it pulls back. It's not consistent. It's like a yo-yo effect. And I think that's what hurts the movie the most, is so many of the characters and the plots that are being done, the things that are happening, get lost in the yo-yo. There's really good moments of character interaction where they're talking to each other. There's great dialogue moments, and then it's Killers of the Flower Moon problem, where it's like these scenes where they're just like staring at the sun. It's like, yeah, it's pretty, but you don't need 20 of them. It's like it's reminiscent of Luke Skywalker looking at the twin suns.
Yeah.
But if they just did that scene 40 times in the movie, it's a little excessive.
It's true.
And it's entertaining. It's just, you start to get a little bit bored as you're waiting for something to happen. And I don't mean, yeah, I get movies don't have to move, but I'm talking about literally there's a sunset on the desert for like a minute. And you're like, is anybody going to do anything?
Right.
That's me.
I do agree. A lot of it is visually stunning. They did a really good job with all the effects. They did a good job with a lot of the shots. It's pretty clear that they tried to extend this out to justify it being 2 parts, because I think a lot of people would have been frustrated if the first part was 3 hours long, but then the second part was done in 80 minutes, because then people would have been like, the heck, dude, you didn't need a 3-hour movie. You could have given us 2 2-hour movies, and that would have been good. So it feels like they kind of added buffers, and they added extra shots, and they added extra things. Overall, the acting is really well done. The direction's really good. Like you said, the staging is really well put together. The score is amazing. It's Hans Zimmer, so it's an amazing score.
The score is excellent. Yeah. That's actually, I think, part of the problem, is the score is so good. You're on these moments where you're just like watching the desert sand move, and the score is epic, and nothing's happening. And you're like, it sounds so good. You're like, here we go. And a tumbleweed rolls, and you're like, why is the music so intense? What's happening?
Right. And the thing is that I have to kind of say, though, that the score for the second part was not as good, I don't think, as the first part. The first part, I was captivated by the music. This one was like, it was really well done. well put together and stuff, but it wasn't as captivating.
I think that's why, because it keeps doing these epic moments and nothing's happening on screen when they do it.
Yeah.
So when it finally does, I kind of felt this way towards the end. It started ramping up the music again, and I didn't think anything was actually going to happen. Yep. Because I had gotten used to it ramping up and they just talked, or ramping up and nothing's really going on.
Well, yeah, it's true. And sometimes it would just ramp and then, like, you would just sit there waiting and you're like, it'd be nice if the worm actually came out of the sand.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if the worm actually showed up. It'd be great.
There was a lot of that with the worms. It was like these, leading up to it and leading up to it. They finally show them like fully at the very towards the end of what's going on. And you're like, yeah, we know what they are. Like, it's not surprising. Like, they're not as imposing anymore. Like, you've lost it. You lost your chance.
That's true. But anyway, that's kind of the overview of the entire film, though. It does drag a bit, but it's visually stunning. There's good stuff to it, bad stuff to it. Overall, it's a good film. Like, it deserves to be like the first major release of the year.
It's a solid film.
Yeah,
yes, it's
a
just
solid film.
It's just it's gonna bore a lot of people who are expecting it to be in. I think we've gotten used to sci-fi being action oriented.
That's true.
This is a classic sci-fi. Things like Isaac Asimov's Foundation or the Robot series or like H.G. Wells' The Time Machine.
That's true.
These are cerebral like sci-fis that are very story and character driven. They're not
really world building.
Yes,
like,
very
the world
world
is
building.
Fascinating. You get kind of sucked up into the world. You get sucked up into the fantasy of it. The thing is that the story within this huge, immense universe that you're kind of thinking of can get a little bit. It almost feels like you're getting kind of copped out.
I think that's the main point you just made there. Fantasy.
Yeah.
This is the classic sci-fi's come off a lot more like fantasy. We think of sci-fi like Star Trek, but things like Star Wars, Dune, and there are more fantasy elements to it. You know, there's psychological powers and like religious like mysticism, and there are things that happen outside of the characters.
Yeah.
And that's where the plot really lies, is in that exchange rather than in like an actual like battle, really.
Yeah. All right, so I think that covers like all of the stuff before we get into spoilers. So thank you guys so much for watching these videos. We will continue on with spoilers, but if you're just here for that review, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Give us a like and be sure to subscribe, because we try to do these every single week, work and stuff permitting, obviously.
Right.
But we do try to do these every week. Without further ado, then, spoilers. I cannot believe that when they introduce Austin Butler's character, the movie suddenly becomes a musical, and then the epic like climax of the film is actually Elvis Presley himself and Willy Wonka having a dance battle for the hand of Florence Pugh. It was amazing.
That actually would be really fun. Actually, I honestly think that one of these days they're gonna do an adaptation of something that they've already done, and they're gonna make a twist ending, and it's gonna be different. Like, they're not gonna do it to the source material. They're gonna follow the source material all the way to the end, and then do something different. You're gonna be like, what?
And then they'll show up at the end of it, produced by M. Night Shyamalan.
I actually almost thought, with the way things were going with this, that they were going to take it a different way, and then they didn't. It goes the way that it's supposed to go.
So,
okay.
Spoilers, if you have read the book, it ends just like the book ends. It's a faithful adaptation. Like, we already kind of said that, but...
Yeah, the only differences are just mild, like... There's some mild changes. Zendaya's Chani... in the book, she becomes his concubine, and this one is just kind of open-ended. Like, she's just leaving him with the sandworm, but it just leaves it kind of open-ended. The jihad does start with his command rather than it happening outside of his control. They don't have, the timeline's a little different. It's weird too because it like shows a lot of time happening, but still the baby's not born. In the book, his sister was born and was like a toddler by the time they actually go and fight, and he has a son with Johnny who's killed in the battle. That was left out.
Probably because it would have complicated things a little bit too
but
much.
it would have.
They wanted it to feel pressing. They wanted to.
I get that, but they extended it into 2 films and then still made it take place only over the course of 9 months. That's the problem I have. You made it like
they were trying to simplify it enough, but at the same time, when they simplified it, this film really does suffer because you can tell that they kind of are doing a lot of filler. They
took out the stuff that would have been the filler and filled it with nothing. It would have been better built to just leave that in there. Like they have this scene where Johnny's sitting up on the hill and she's like just devastated at her people getting blown up, which I get, but it was way more intense when it was her kid that was killed.
That's fair.
Like there's a lot more to it than that, and and he had his sister to protect. Like she was still in the womb the entire time. Whereas in the original, like she becomes a separate person. So now there's 3 people he cares about independently that he has to be concerned about, and they all in the book they represent the different paths that he can take. The Johnny is the Freeman, their path. His mom is the old path, the Jesuit and his old family, and then his sister represents a new path with like a hybrid of ways. And that was a major plot in the original book, and that was kind of left out, and it was made a lot. It streamlined it a little bit, I guess, but it didn't improve anything. It just made it a little weird that it took so little time for them to do so much. But it was over the course of several years that he was with the Fremen before. It's just kind of odd, but I mean, otherwise it follows the plot really well. Like the right characters are there. They're played really well by the right people. The Emperor actually was really. I did like the Emperor's daughter, like writing her, doing like the narration. Yeah, was actually really fun because, she's in the original. She's a character who shows up at the very end, and that's literally all she does. Is basically make the peace for peace. But in this one, she's like. It's like she knows where this is going to and where this is coming to a head, and she's part of it. Yeah, that was good. I liked that. I liked the another thing that was kind of odd too on a change that was weird but not necessarily bad is they had like the Fremen were more divided. Yeah. In the book
between the North and the South.
Yeah, in the book they kind of just accept him. There's not really a lot of infighting. There is right at the very beginning there is, but once he beats their champion, it kind of gets quelled. But it was actually interesting. It gave a lot more depth to the Fremen, where there's a lot more diversity of ideas amongst the people and the tribes. That was really fun, giving them more fleshed out. Because they are fleshed out in later books of the series that give them more like cause to give them that, so it made sense. Getting more into their beliefs and the religion that they are and all that. So there was a lot of that. There was some variance and changing of like historical tones, but it follows the book. It's probably one of the most faithful adaptations I've ever seen of a book to film. Lord of the Rings is another one that's very similar. It's that close. But that also can make it rough because the book can get boring and stale, and it skips time quite a bit. He'll be doing something, and then it's like a year later. Here's the thing, which can be a little jarring on the film. So that might be part of why they condensed it a bit. Yeah, like you were saying, like they condensed it to kind of make it easier to follow, but it didn't really help. Is the problem? They still left a lot of filler in there. This could have been 2, like you said, 2-hour films instead of 2 3.5-hour films. Yeah. It's kind of weird how they stay, because I get it. They've never been able to successfully turn Dune into one film. There's a lot that happens, but they didn't have to be 2 as long of films as it was.
Yeah. Definitely not.
It could have been shorter. It could have been cleaner. They could have. I wonder if they filmed this back to back, like in the split it, like they did other ones, or if this was filmed separately.
I think it was filmed back to back.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. Like, Warner Brothers did not announce that there was going to be a sequel until really, really late in the first one's box office run. I think to try to drive up ticket sales. But
I wonder if maybe what they tried to do is they had cut it to where they wanted it, and it ended up being like 6 hours. They're like, well, we could cut it down to one film, but it's really going to lose its context. Yeah. And so they didn't. It doesn't feel like it drags the whole 3 hours. It's just, it feels like...
It drags enough that you become aware of the fact that you're being dragged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Based on what it was, it's entirely possible. Literally just 20 minutes out of it could have made a difference. It was noticeable. It was noticeable that it was a little laggy.
Well, yeah, and then they also repeat shots. Well, not really repeat. Like, they make it different, but it's kind of the same thing where it's like, we show the sky, we show the sands, we show the people.
That's what I was talking about. There's one of the most interesting parts is when they go to Harkonnen, to their world. Yeah. It's a different world. We get to see something different. When they're on Arrakis, so many times it's them shooting at rock, them shooting at rock, them shooting at rock, and you're like, how many times are they gonna shoot at the rock? Like, we get it. Like, when they were out in the field, like doing the fighting and stuff, they could have skipped through a lot of that. They skipped the thing where he does the trial in the desert, like just suddenly, and then go to him being in the fighting. And it's like, why even mention that if you're not even gonna show it? You mentioned it. He's with her, and then he's. I was confused for a minute because I thought that was them fighting while he was still on his trial at first. That was the kind of thing that threw me off. Those moments when it would like time shift without making it clear that's what was happening. Yeah. I can't. Their faces are covered. I know that's a Fremen thing. I get it, but if you're gonna do it well, you can't keep them covered all the time in between scenes if you're going to time skip, because I have no idea what's happening until I see his face, because I wasn't sure what was going on until I saw Chani. I'm like, wait, she's there. I thought they were just, and then I saw him like, oh, this is after the trial. Where was the trial? It didn't happen. All they would have had to do was show him coming back, and then they left things out that would have given better context and extended out scenes that didn't mean much.
Yeah.
That's what hurt this film. It's still, I give it an 8 just because it's good in spite of those things. But had it fixed that, it would have been perfect. Yeah. It could have been a perfect film if they'd have I don't know.
If they had done it better,
they had not
made it perfect, it would have been perfect.
It's not even a nitpicky thing. It's like the whole film is that stop. That made it difficult to follow at times, and I was getting lost in it. I'm like, and I know the plot I know what happens, so it was rough sometimes to keep track of it. But other than that, good.
So it's a solid film. Probably the best one we've seen this year so far. Which is it like that's a very low bar, but it's still like.
But like I said, this film is a spectacle. It's not really a film that's like deep, and it's like it's philosophic. It's philosophically deep.
It's got stuff in it that you could really think about. I wish that they would like pull a little bit more of the world apart, because it seems like the world is the interesting part of the movie, not necessarily the plot. But at the same time, you need to make a movie if you really want to get into like the world building, you get into the book. Anyway, though, like I was about to say something and then like completely have gotten to like derailed.
It's all good. I think it's pretty good. We've picked it apart a little bit, but
well, yeah,
it's fun. It just like you said, the world building. It just looks pretty.
Yeah,
it's pretty. It's pretty to look at. It's like a.
It's one of those films that, like, I think that 100% it does benefit from being in the theater, though.
Yes.
Like, the sound quality in and of itself is kind of what blows you away, because you're just immersed in all of these different things. Like, it's just one of those things where the superior sound system and the big visuals really do help it in that regards. We didn't put that in earlier, but if you are going to see this film, if you haven't already seen this film, watch it in theaters.
Yeah.
I guess it's good. It's
yep.
Good. Anyway, it's late. I'm tired. He's tired. We're gonna go. But before we go, we're going to remind you once again, if you like this video, let us know by leaving us a like. Let us know your thoughts about Dune Part 2 or even Part 1 in the comments below. Also, we're always open to feedback. Let us know what you guys would like from us from these reviews, as well as different things that we do on the channel every Wednesday. If you are curious about all of those things, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and share us with your friends. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks for watching.